My name is Daniel, and I thought I knew what love was. After 2 years with Olivia, I was convinced she was the one. We met at a coffee shop near my apartment. Classic, I know. And something about her just clicked with me. She was beautiful, smart, and had this way of making me feel like I was the only person in the room. Looking back, I should have seen the signs, but when you're in love, sometimes you choose not to. From the beginning, there was always something mysterious about Olivia. She was private about certain aspects of her life, especially her family. Whenever I'd bring up meeting her parents or siblings, she'd get this distant look in her eyes. My mom's really sick, she'd tell me, her voice soft and pained. She has a chronic condition. That's why I can't travel much or bring people home. I never pushed. How could I? The way her voice broke when she talked about her mother's illness made my heart ache for her. She told me stories about hospital visits, about sitting by her mom's bedside holding her hand through the worst nights. It was one of the things I admired most about her dedication to family despite the circumstances. Every few weekends, Olivia would head to her hometown to check on her mom. Sometimes she'd be gone for just a day, other times for 3 or 4. I never questioned it. I'd send her off with a care package of homemade cookies for her mom, always including a note saying I hoped to meet her someday when she felt better. "You're so sweet," Olivia would say, kissing me goodbye. "Mom would love you if she could meet you." If only I'd known the truth. Our relationship was otherwise perfect. We moved in together after a year, and our apartment became this safe haven where everything made sense. We'd cook dinner together, binge-watch shows, plan weekend trips to places nearby since Olivia couldn't go too far from her mom. I thought we were building something real. Then came that Tuesday afternoon. I remember it perfectly because I'd taken the day off work to wait for a delivery. I was sitting on the couch scrolling through my phone when the doorbell rang. I opened the door to find a woman in her early 50s standing there. She had Olivia's eyes, the same warm brown, but her hair was shorter, silver strands mixed with dark blonde. She was dressed casually in jeans and a light blue sweater, looking perfectly healthy, and definitely not like someone suffering from a chronic illness. "Hello," she said with a smile that looked eerily like Olivia's. "You must be the roommate." "I'm Catherine, Olivia's mom. Is she home?" My heart dropped to my stomach. The roommate? I stood there, frozen, my mind racing to make sense of what was happening. I'm Daniel," I managed to say, my voice sounding distant even to myself. "Her boyfriend. We've been together for 2 years." Catherine's smile faltered, confusion clouding her features. "Boyfriend?" Olivia didn't mention she had a boyfriend. The silence between us was deafening. I felt like I was watching myself from outside my body as I invited her in, offered her something to drink, making small talk while my entire reality crumbled around me. "So you've been dating my daughter for 2 years?" Catherine asked, sitting on the edge of our couch. The couch Olivia and I had picked out together at IKEA, laughing as we tried to fit it into my car. "Yes," I said, my mouth dry. "Olivia told me you were sick. That's why I've never met you." Catherine's expression shifted from confusion to concern. "Sick? I've never been sick a day in my life beyond the usual cold or flu. I work out 5 times a week and just ran a half marathon last month." I felt dizzy. None of this made sense. "She visits you every few weekends. She takes care of you." Catherine shook her head slowly. "Daniel, I haven't seen Olivia in over a month. She calls regularly, but she always says she's too busy with work and her roommate to visit. That's why I decided to surprise her today. I was in town for a conference and thought I'd finally see where my daughter lives." My mind was spinning, trying to piece together all the weekends Olivia had supposedly spent at her mom's house. Where had she been going? Who had she been with? "She'll be home around 6, I said, checking my watch. It was just past 2. "Do you want to wait?" Catherine nodded, and we sat in uncomfortable silence, occasionally making forced conversation. I learned that she was a high school principal, lived in a town about an hour away, and had raised Olivia as a single mom after her father left when she was young. All these details that should have been familiar to me after 2 years were completely new. As the hours passed, I felt a growing sense of dread. I scrolled through my phone, looking at pictures of Olivia and me, wondering if anything had been real. Had I spent 2 years loving someone who didn't even exist? At 5:45, I heard keys in the lock. Catherine and I both turned toward the door as it swung open. Olivia walked in, dropping her bag on the floor. She froze when she saw us, her face draining of color. Her eyes darted between her mother and me, and I could practically see her mind racing, trying to formulate an explanation. "Mom," she said, her voice barely above a whisper, "what are you doing here?" Catherine stood up. "I was in town and thought I'd surprise you. Your boyfriend has been keeping me company." The word boyfriend hung in the air like a bomb about to detonate. Olivia's eyes met mine, and for the first time, I didn't recognize the person staring back at me. "Daniel," she started, taking a step toward me, "I can explain." I'd never felt so hollow. "Explain what? That you've been lying to me for 2 years, that your mom isn't sick, that I'm apparently your roommate?" Catherine looked between us, clearly uncomfortable. "I think you two need to talk. I'll go." "No," I said firmly, "please stay. I think I'm the one who should go. I need some air." I grabbed my jacket and keys, brushing past Olivia as I headed for the door. She reached for my arm, but I pulled away. "Daniel, please," she pleaded, tears forming in her eyes. Those eyes I'd looked into countless times, believing I saw truth there. "Where are you going all those weekends?" I asked, my voice surprisingly calm despite the storm raging inside me. She didn't answer, and that was answer enough. I walked out, slamming the door behind me. I drove aimlessly for hours, my phone buzzing with texts and calls from Olivia that I ignored. Eventually, I ended up at my friend Mike's place. He took one look at my face and knew something was wrong. "She's been living a double life," I told him after explaining what happened. "I don't know who she really is." Mike let me crash on his couch, and I spent a sleepless night staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment of our relationship, looking for clues I might have missed. The next morning, my phone showed 17 missed calls from Olivia and dozens of texts. I read through them, each one more desperate than the last. "Please come home so we can talk. I'm so sorry. It's not what you think. I love you, please believe that." The last one, sent at 3 a.m., simply said, "I'll be at our spot at noon if you want to hear the truth." Our spot was a bench overlooking the lake in the park where we had our first real date. Despite everything, I found myself walking there at noon, needing answers more than I needed to protect my already shattered heart. She was already there when I arrived, sitting with her shoulders hunched, looking smaller than I'd ever seen her. When she looked up, her eyes were red and swollen. "Thank you for coming," she said as I sat down, leaving enough space between us to fit another person. "I deserve the truth," I replied. She nodded, taking a deep breath. "I've been seeing someone else. His name is Jason. We dated in college, broke up, and then reconnected about 6 months after you and I got together." The words hit me like physical blows. 6 months after we started dating. That meant for a year and a half of our relationship, she'd been with someone else. "Every time I said I was visiting my mom, I was with him," she continued, her voice flat. "He lives about an hour away. I told him the same lie in reverse, that I had a sick father I needed to care for, which is why I couldn't be with him full time." "So you've been juggling 2 relationships for a year and a half?" I asked, my voice breaking despite my best efforts. "Why didn't you just choose?" Olivia wiped at her tears. "I couldn't. With you I had stability, comfort, a real partnership. With Jason there was passion and history. I convinced myself I needed both to be happy." "And what about what we needed?" I asked, anger finally breaking through the numbness. "Did you ever think about that? About how you were stealing years of our lives that we could have spent with people who actually loved us completely?" "I do love you," she insisted. "No," I said firmly, "you don't. Love doesn't do this." We sat in silence for a while, watching people jog and walk their dogs around the lake, oblivious to the collapse of my world. "Does he know now?" I finally asked. She nodded. "I called him last night after you left, told him everything." "And he's done with me too," she said quietly. "Can't say I blame him." Part of me wanted to feel satisfaction that her elaborate house of cards had completely fallen apart, but I was too hurt for petty feelings like that. "I'll move out," she said. "You can keep the apartment. It's the least I can do." I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. "Daniel?" she said, reaching for my hand. I pulled it away. "I never meant to hurt you. I know that sounds ridiculous given what I did, but it's true. I got caught in my own web and didn't know how to get out without hurting everyone." "So you just kept going, letting the lies pile up until they collapsed on their own," I said. "Do you know what gets me the most? The cookies. I baked cookies for your mom. I wrote her notes. I worried about her when you said she was having bad days." Tears streamed down Olivia's face. "I'm so sorry. I need to know one thing," I said, looking her directly in the eyes. "Was any of it real? Us, I mean." She held my gaze. "Yes, when I was with you it was real. That's what made it so hard. I loved our life together. I loved you." I stood up, unable to sit there any longer. "Goodbye, Olivia." As I walked away, I heard her call after me, but I didn't turn around. There was nothing left to say. The next few weeks were a blur. Olivia moved out while I stayed with Mike. She left her key on the counter, along with a letter I never read. I went back to an apartment that no longer felt like home, filled with memories of a relationship that had been half a lie. I tried to make sense of how I could have missed the signs. There had been small inconsistencies in her stories about her mom, times when she was unreachable during her supposed visits home, the fact that she never wanted to video call her family when I was around. But love had made me blind, willing to accept her explanations without question. Catherine texted me once, apologizing for being the unwitting catalyst for the revelation. She also mentioned that she was there for me if I ever wanted to talk. I appreciated the gesture, but couldn't bring myself to respond. It was too strange, this connection to a woman I should have known as a second mother by now, if things had been different. It took time, months of therapy, long talks with friends, nights spent questioning everything. But slowly I started to rebuild. I learned to trust my instincts again, to recognize that asking questions doesn't mean you don't trust someone. Sometimes it means you're paying attention. 6 months later, I ran into Catherine at a coffee shop, the same one where I'd met Olivia, ironically. We ended up talking for an hour. She told me Olivia had moved to another city, started fresh. She was in therapy, working through her issues with commitment and honesty. "She really did love you," Catherine said as we were about to part ways. "That wasn't a lie. She just didn't know how to love in a healthy way." I nodded, surprised to find that the pain had dulled. "I know. I hope she figures it out someday." As I walked home that day, I realized something important. The betrayal would always be part of my story, but it didn't have to define me. I had loved completely and honestly, and that said something about who I was, even if it hadn't been returned in kind. Sometimes people come into our lives not to stay, but to teach us something about ourselves. Olivia had taught me that I was capable of deep love and commitment. Now I just needed to find someone worthy of receiving it. And as for her, I genuinely hoped she'd find peace with herself, because the saddest part of her double life wasn't what she did to me or to Jason. It was what she did to herself, splitting her existence in two until she lost track of who she really was. That's the thing about living a lie. Eventually, you forget what the truth feels like, and that's a punishment far worse than anything I could have wished upon her. I still don't know if I'll ever fully trust someone the way I trusted her, but I do know that one day I'll be ready to try again. And next time, I'll keep my eyes open, not because I'm expecting deception, but because real love deserves to be seen clearly, in all its honest, imperfect glory. So if you're reading this and wondering if you missed the signs, or if you could have done something differently, stop. Sometimes we don't see what people are hiding because they work very hard to keep it hidden. It's not your fault for believing in someone you loved. It's their loss for betraying that belief. And that's something I had to learn the hard way.